Hey guys, so done with I think it's going to be the last big trip of the year. Um, yes, it was Salem. And yes, I had a shitload of fun. Yes, there's going to be food because after doing 6 days in which city, Salem, I needed some pumpkin coffee. And it's a really good thing that I have like a pound of it in the cabinet because I couldn't get it in Salem. And I don't think anybody's going to be up live with me. So this is just going to be my way of kind of talking about it without having to do a whole lot of to do about it. And by to do, I mean editing. So let's talk food. I'm going to actually do an edited video for those that want to see it. And for those who are really upset that I have biscuits and gravy, I'm sorry. So places to eat in Salem. There's a few. I'll go over them in the video. And there is one that's across from Rockefeller's that both say great breakfast. They charge some Disney ass prices. And their food is really bad. If you have to go, and I shouldn't say if you have to go. So if you want to go, you can go. If you want to go and eat really good breakfast, go to Red's. But not just any Red's. You got to go to a Red's that's in downtown Salem. Because I was told and informed as of a video as of 4 months ago, that's how recent it was, that there was a Red's that was in Peabody. Now, when you live in Wisconsin, it's pronounced Peabody because it's spelled Peabody. I can correct it before we even got to Boston. We got corrected in Baltimore. It's pronounced Peabody. So take out everything except for the Y, you know. So there's a Red's Kitchen and Tavern in Peabody. And then there's a Red's sandwich shop that's in Salem. The idea was for the original owner for them to expand, kind of franchise out their brand, because the original Red's is not very big. And it gets very crowded very fast. Oh my God, the food is so worth it, but it's more than I can handle. So they expanded to the neighboring city of Peabody. And so when we were like, we're hungry now, we were going to go eat at Red's Tavern. It was a rude awakening. Because it was very much set up like a large diner. Large flat grills and the whole nine yards. Unfortunately, no. The only thing they had in common was the name and the menu. Because these people could not even brew a iced coffee correctly. That's the reason why I'm really enjoying this cup of coffee. Oh, that's good. That's good. So, that's a fork. We went there. The guy I went with had a regular coffee and I had an iced coffee. Okay. Irregardless of if you're going to Starbucks, Dunkin', BK, McDonald's. All the fast food places and all the coffee places can agree on one fucking thing. If you're making iced coffee, it has to be double strength. Thus, when I make iced coffee, I call it double brew. And if I have to make a quad brew, I call it jet fuel. Because it's quadruple the strength. Okay. Some places will make it with espresso, blah, blah, blah. Preferences. The one thing that's in common with all of those is that they're all stronger than a standard pot of coffee. Apparently they didn't get this memo at the one in Peabody, because I got served a standard pot of coffee over ice, which quickly became colored water, and it was gross. And the waitress was rude, and we literally paid for our drinks, which neither one of us really touched, and left and went to the original Reds. So if you decide to go to Salem and you're not staying in Salem proper, go to the original Reds. Don't settle for imitations. I hear they have another restaurant that he opened and expanded into, but you know what? The original Reds. You gotta stay with that, because that's like going to, you know, an imitation ripoff place, and it's not the same. I really just want to eat. Now, there is a channel that covers a lot of Salem. And I don't know if the actual channel is called Detours or not. But he's always in a place called Rockefeller's, which I thought was a bar. I thought it was just a bar. They had cafe dining out front. And it was right on the corner of Essex. It's a whole restaurant. Now, they don't show you a lot of it, and I will actually do, when I do the finished video, I will do like a pan around. I do a lot of pan arounds so you guys can get the idea of the atmosphere of some of these places. But the dining is more upscale. Almost Disney-esque prices. Fabulous fucking food. Oh my god. Good food. So we went there 3 nights. 2 for food and 1 for drinks. So I would definitely recommend Rockefeller's. There's a breakfast place across the street from that. Skip that one. That is some... They've got a nice view. It would be great for people watching, but if you want quality food, go somewhere else. We also went to a place called Gula Gula Cafe. And I say a place called Gula Gula Cafe. It's like a breakfast spot. They don't have too much in the way of lunch stuff, but they are open much later. And they are in the square where the Samantha from Bewitched statue is. So if Rockefeller's is here, the really crappy breakfast restaurant is here, and then you go across the street and there's a square and you see the Samantha statue. Behind the Samantha statue from Rockefeller's is Gula Gula Cafe. And they have a really decent selection. I can't remember what Chris had. It was something like the oink and something. It had all the meats. And apparently it was very, very tasty. I was being a plain Jane that day and a basic bitch, and I just had a bagel, and I think I just had a latte. But it was good to eat. Can't complain. If you want breakfast food though, like you want a meal, go to Red's. There's a goldfinch. I don't know if I can change the camera while I'm live streaming. Otherwise, I would show you the goldfinch. There's a goldfinch. Breakfast. In the square by Gula Gula, there's a Thai place. Flying Saucer Pizza. We checked it out, but those people are trying to reinvent the wheel. There was a couple of Asian places. I'm gonna check those out. I live in Sheboygan and I can get all the Asian I want without paying Mickey Mouse prices. And I get that it's the East Coast, and so you're gonna pay more on the East Coast, but again, I live in the Midwest and I live in a town where there is a very high Asian population. So there's a lot of Asian restaurants. I don't have to pay Mickey Mouse prices. So I didn't really, I fell for it once. We went out to Fort Pickering, and there was a little strip mall arcade thing, like from the 80s. And there was an actual arcade in there. There was an ice cream place, a pizza place. No, wait. Might have been a pizza place. It might have been a taco place. See, there was a lot of places that were mislabeled because they've changed hands. So I can't remember if it was a pizza place and it served tacos or whatever. Anyway, there was a faux place because despite the fact that it's June, it was consistently like 65 degrees. Which is why I'm wearing this, because today it's 65 degrees. And I spent the whole week being cold, except for one fucking day. One fucking day it was warm enough where I could have wore shorts. And it would have been fine. So, we walked from... We walked from... we were walking around the lake, and I've got shells over there from. It wasn't a lake. It was the harbor. It was the ocean. I live by a lake. It's hard. Listen, words are hard, people. So we walked down from the clam shack, and there was this. It was cold. The wind was picking up off the ocean, and the wind got cold. And so I have to sneeze. I think I have to sneeze. We were walking down, and there was a strip mall, and as we were walking, we passed somebody that had some faux fa. It was the Asian noodle soup with the rice noodles, and I was like, oh my god, that sounds so good right now, because I just wanted something warm. I had not. Originally, the forecast was supposed to be in the 70s. I had packed 3 pairs of pants, a pair of shorts, and a skirt. The skirt, because it was suddenly supposed to rain, I scotch guarded to death in case it started pouring, and then I left it in the hotel room like an idiot. So we were walking down, and I was like, oh, pho sounds really, really good. And we found out where she got it. Remember when I said I live in a town with a high Asian population? There's plenty of places to. This pho was not done. And it came in a cup. It was about the size of this coffee mug. Okay? It's a little bit taller. And the noodles were not done. And let me tell you what. Yuck! I was so traumatized by bad soupies that I had to get soupies. See, like, I will show you because I feel like having show and tell. soupies. Okay. This is part 2 of good soupies because I can never manage to fit it all in one container. Oh. That's going to be lunch later. That was lunch yesterday. It was good. Anyway, so that was the Fountain restaurant that was across from Rockefeller's. The breakfast thing. They've got a lot of metal seating in the middle of the square. And the place where we got pho were the worst of all the places we ate. It was rather remarked on that Chris finally found the G-spot and he was going to let all the guys know about it. It was the Euro place, and it's literally called the Euro spot. And it's one of, I think, 3 Mediterranean restaurants in town. They weren't bad. I got something called the Zeus, which had chicken, lamb, and I think beef. Hi, Brookie. Somebody missed me. Somebody missed me a lot. See? Hi. Yes. She missed me so much. She has not left my side. And that's to be expected. So the G-spot was some decent eats. I don't know that it's gonna take the place in Orlando though, because the place in Orlando was that was some damn good freaking Greek. And it came with its own belly dancer, so I mean, can't help a belly dancer. So we covered Rockefeller's, the shitty breakfast place, the good breakfast place, not eating at the imitation breakfast place. Oh, what else was there? The chipmunk is back. Chipmunk is back. That would be Dutch going into the door trying to kill the chipmunk. So, what else do we eat? We ate at a Sonic, because I personally have never ate at a Sonic, but they exist. When I travel, I like to eat at places that are not franchisee, like Sonic or Burger King or McDonald's, because I know what I'm going to get. Oh, if you go, talk to the local wildlife. And I'm not talking about, like, if you do a tour, talk to the local wildlife. I'm like, as you're going through your shops, and talk to the locals about where they would recommend you eat based on what you like. Okay, so if you're looking for a good clam chowder, and I feel like an idiot, and I feel like I'm being sarcastic when I say that, but I have been corrected many times, just like Peabody. Chowder. You don't pronounce the R. Chowder. So if you get chowder, you can get it at Rockefeller's. Chris really enjoyed it. He said it was really good. I don't do clam chowder, although I tried it. I did try it. I had a haddock dinner and it's not about to do the chowder. My brain just won't let chowder happen. But talk to the locals. They'll be able to give you some really good recommendations on places to eat, on the good attractions versus the bad attractions. And I was really glad we did. We went to the Peabody Essex Museum, which is as much an art museum as it is a history museum. I wasn't really too tripped out about one exhibit, and it was just like, feels shitty because you're white. Like, you had nothing to do with any of this. You were not alive for this. You weren't even related to these fucking assholes who did all this shit. And the ethics and morality of 400 years ago was completely different than it is today, but feels shitty for being white. And I wasn't the only one that had made that observation where it was just like, we hate you because you're white. But I was surprised to find it in a museum where it was just very anti-white. Um, yeah, it made me not comfortable. And so I don't know that I would really do the Peabody Essex Museum again. Go figure. I would get just as upset if it was a exhibit that was hating on any other race. So please don't take it as I'm racist or I feel like everything should be pro-white. I was surprised that there was such an anti-white exhibit that was going on, and it had to do with the settling of Salem and the settling of Boston. And yes, it was shitty. We can all agree that what they did was shitty, but none of us were alive for that, so none of us can change it. And honestly, it just, I'm rambling. It was somewhat educational, but then it took a very political turn, and I know that exists out there. I just didn't really want to. No, I wasn't mentally or like I wasn't prepared to be dealing with that when I was in the middle of Salem. You will get historied out in Salem. You will get tired of hearing about the witch trials. You will get sick of hearing about Giles Corey. You will get sick of hearing about everything that has to do with the witch trials. Because I did. If you are not a witchy witch, and by witchy witch, I mean just, we'll call it paganism in general, okay? Props to my travel companion for having enough patience to go into almost all of the stores with me just so I could check them out. And then sometimes revisiting them a second time. Now, when I was in my 20s, and New Age was a thing, and there was a lot more New Age stores than there are now. They're kind of hard to come by. All of your different disciplines and practices were all looped into one store. In Salem, it seems like every practice it's got its own store. There are at least 2 different stores that I saw that were just disciplines in herbalism. Druid, several on Wicca, or a branch of Wicca, because Wicca decided to squirrel off into like all these different branches. Egyptian, Druid. There was one that was Norse that was considering itself a separate practice from Druidism. There was one that was Taoism, one that was more I Ching, and the chipmunk's getting into a lot of trouble because he's over here up on the bird feeder, or at least he's trying. He's a hungry little guy today. That's okay, so am I. So there was that. Every store's kind of got its own thing. There was a fair amount of coffee houses. What? He's trying. He's trying. Can you see him? There he is. That was funny. Okay. Finch is like, fuck off, asshole. He's back. He's back. That's too funny. That's too funny. This is not funny. You are not funny, sir. I got my biscuits and gravy, not where biscuits and gravy go. Let me see. Let's see. Peabody Essex. Each store has its own this one. Lots of coffee houses. We did stop in a coffee house that was recommended by one of the shop owners called Rosella's. I got the card upstairs. And they, she recommended them based off the fact that they have their own selection of syrups. It doesn't sound anything too ornate except for the fact that like they legit make their own syrup. And so I had a lavender latte, I think. It was really good. It was really, really good. And we had breakfast, but we were walking around, and I did not want to walk around with a bottle of syrup in my bag all day because we had a walking night tour that night. So we had to come back another day and get it, but it's upstairs. Let's see, what else is there? Oh, yes. We went to a drag show. Now, somebody could fact check me on this, I don't know. I was told that Massachusetts was the first state to allow gay marriage. Again, I didn't take the time to go look this up, I don't know. That's what I was told. I do know that Salem is very inclusive and very I'm failing to find the word on that one. You know, they would definitely call themselves an ally to the, as one of my friends called them, the alphabet mafia. If you get offended at that is not my term. It was told to me by a gay man, so just get off me. I have one friend that would call them the alphabet people, and I have another friend that would call them the alphabet mafia because they're just, and the gay pride flag has changed. So both of them will comment about how if you're flying just the rainbow flag, the flag has changed, update your flag. So we will call them the alphabet mafia for right now. Anyway, we were over by a place called Black Cat, which is kind of like this whole shop of curiosities. I did get something from them. There was a drag show going on. Now, the one who coined the phrase of the alphabet mafia, I showed him the tapes, and he goes, "This is not a drag show. This is a bunch of gay people having fun. I will take you to an actual drag show, and then you will find out, because there is not enough mood lighting, there's not enough of this, there's not enough of that." I kind of laughed about it, because where Gula Gula is, and there's that like 4-lane road that's between that little common park area, and then Rockefeller's across the street. So that's where they were having the drag show, which outside. And this was unacceptable to my friend, because you couldn't control enough elements, and you couldn't get the dramatics. And I think it was just, as he put it, I have to agree, it was just a bunch of gay people having fun. And it was really, really enjoyable. I particularly liked the whole thing where he was going off about, or she was going off about, how legislation written by people who are not affected by the legislation they're writing about. And about how I really doubt that man was the man who wrote the legislation that outlawed, was it gays reading to kids or something like that? It's a Florida thing, I don't care. And there was a kid that was at the show. She must have been 7 or 8. I did not put her on camera. It just was really funny. And she walked up and she's like, "Do you feel like you've been accosted by a drag queen today?" And everybody was just like, it was ridiculous because we were all just standing there having a lot of fun. And they spent a lot of time just making fun of divas. And there was one that was lip syncing to Whitney Houston. And it was from The Bodyguard. And it was a run to you. And at some point, she ran on the corner. Because remember, I told you this is in a park. So she ran from where she was over at Gula Gula, and over here is Rockefeller's, and in between there's a 4-lane road. And we are actually on the corner here with another side street. I don't remember what the side street is. And she ran across the park instead of the middle of the intersection, holding up traffic and flipping people off so she could finish her bit in the street. And it was very impressive, very dramatic. And to me, it was impressive because she didn't give a fuck. There was no fucks given about whether or not she was going to go over there and hold up traffic. My biscuits and gravy is cold, and it's not as tasty when it's cold. Oh well. Biscuits and gravy has gravy. When you order at Red's, it's basically like just a paste. There's not really any gravy with it. And the biscuits are hella dry. Burp. Yay. Bird. And the chipmunk is over that way now. Irritating the shit out of the cats. Let's see. What else? We spent 6 days in Salem. I'm pretty sure, had I focused, we probably could have knocked it out in 5. In case you're wondering about like tours, there are 72 different walking tours. 72. Stay with the local tours. People, stay with the local tours. When I went to Tombstone, had booked a walking tour in Tombstone from Ghost City Tours. And in Tombstone, it might have been a good tour. It might have been a good tour. I don't know because I didn't take it. Because I had to cancel because I'm an idiot and I lost my keys in my car. They were nice enough to reschedule it for Salem. I will be calling and I will be complaining. And I will let you know that if you are going to take a tour in Salem, stay the fuck away from Ghost City Tours. Because it's fucking horrible. So we took the Requiem tour. Now, if you haven't been born underneath a fucking brick, you know that Salem's got a really, really dark history. Clearly, because they like to paint it on the wall over at the Essex Museum and make you feel bad about shit you had nothing to fucking do with. Okay. Having said that, there are certain topics that are not necessarily really kosher to do around kids. Like really graphic descriptions of what they did to some of the accused, how the life was, because life was fuck hard back then. Like, I don't think there's a millennial that can really appreciate with their cell phones and their Starbucks how hard life was back in colonial times. And I did reenacting, and I can tell you I have no idea how hard life was, because I have modern medical and I have all of these things that make it so I don't die of dysentery on the Oregon Trail, you know? But along with dying of dysentery on the Oregon Trail and not having modern medical practices, they had some serious wackadoo bullshit going on in Salem that caused a lot of heartache for a lot of fucking people. And that was without the drama of the American Revolution, okay? There was some serious bullshit going on in Salem and in Boston. So when you book a tour, you're gonna talk about American history. And bitches, it's history. I don't expect anybody to, like, be personally fucking persecuted for anything that happened these days from what happened then. These are two different, completely different fucking times. Anyway, so they'll tell you about how Giles Corey was pressed to death. Okay. You'll walk past the graveyards. Okay, fine, cool. There was a fair amount of school groups there. There was a couple of just touring groups there that went to, like, charter cemetery and that. And they would talk in simple speak, plain English about things that would happen and basically dying of dysentery on the Oregon Trail and all the things that happened. So when I booked a Requiem tour, which was the night tour that was adults only, and it mentioned stopping off at, like, I don't know, Proctor's Ledge. Because if you go on the website, it actually says you will stop at Proctor's Ledge. We didn't. We didn't go anywhere near Proctor's Ledge. The only way that Chris and I went to Proctor's Ledge is because we walked to Proctor's Ledge. Our tour for Ghost City Tours didn't go anywhere near Proctor's Ledge. It didn't go anywhere near any of the sites other than Charter Street Cemetery, which is where we met, that they advertise. So stay the hell away from Ghost City Tours. If you actually want to say what they're seeing on their tour, well, I'm going to call them, I'm going to light them up. No. And that's just on the things they advertise. Let's get to the fact that our tour guide showed up late. He was the second last person to get there. Second last. Then, when he showed up, okay, I don't want to get gravy on my nose, okay? He's sniffling and sneezing, and I'll be right back. I got to run over to CVS and get some, I don't know if he was going to get a decongestant or some allergy medication or what, because he simply could not do the tour, or I don't know, prepare for this tour prior to actually showing up for the tour. Now, I know you're thinking, people have problems. Stop being a Karen. Really not. Because there were some people from Marblehead that didn't even wait until they got home before they wrote a scathing review on TripAdvisor. Like, we were all completely fucking pissed. Because you pay $35 for these tickets, and you expect some history, not cherry picking what the hell you want to make a dramatic story, and then, well, I'm going to tell you what I want to do, but I'm also going to drop in the F-bomb every 5 freaking words. I'm sorry, the cat's hacking up a hairball. So, it became one of these things where he had said, well, this is the Requiem tour, and so this is the adults only tour, so we can say whatever we want. Okay, you know what? I have no problem dropping an F-bomb. But as it got eloquently stated, the F-bomb is like salt and pepper. You can overdo it, and it can ruin a meal. Just because you drop the F-bomb does not mean that you're making it more adult. You actually ruined it. Because if you actually treated the subject matter with some amount of, I don't know, dignity and respect, and then you had the audacity, which I have been recommended by a few people, to go call the city council because this tour guide was just shitting all over Salem. Just really, really badly. Like, oh, we have a really salty history. We have a really, really bad history. And that's what we do with it in Salem. We just put some glitter and glitz over it, and then we just market it up for the people who don't live here, but we're the ones that have to deal with it. I was just like, wow, I now not only don't like you as a tour guide, I don't even want to fucking be in town. But thank you for completely making it absolutely shitty. We did stop by what was the old jail. And no, not the dungeon. The dungeon's a whole different building. But we did stop by the old jail. And he was talking about how it had been in operation until 1991, and there was no running water, and now it's luxury apartments, and blah, 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 blah. He had one fucking good line. And that was something about how when Nirvana's Nevermind dropped in 1991, people were dropping their shit in a generalized bucket because they had chamber pots in their cells. I was like, this is the one reference that you have. Other than that, you have an F-bomb and no clue as to what the hell you're talking about. Man does not deserve to have his job. The other thing that I didn't like about that tour is there were about, like 15 people on the tour. I don't want to say it was more than 20. It was a good size, but not as many as there were on the good tour. Cobble peg sidewalks. Flex. Okay? So that's a bonus when you're talking about you have old trees buried next to, or growing next to the sidewalk, because when the roots come up, the sidewalk comes up. Unfortunately, that means the sidewalks go like this. So it can be really, really treacherous walking. If you're used to cement sidewalks, this is like all-terrain walking on a sidewalk. I think I can count on like one hand how many times I saw a wheelchair, because a wheelchair just, nope, they would have, it would be all-terraining because there were divots and rises and pockets, and it wasn't even that the cobble pegs were missing. That is the bonus of having a cobble peg sidewalk, is that they flex without destroying the sidewalk. But it does mean your stupid ass has to fucking pay attention when you're walking down the sidewalk. The other thing is that you have 12, 15 people walking down the sidewalk. Could you tell them to not only be mindful of the sidewalk, but to make room for other fucking people walking down the sidewalk so that the person who's just doesn't have to walk out in the street in front of traffic? Like, you are literally endangering the public. And then you think it's cute to literally have half of your group, if not yourself, in the middle of the street, like, well, fuck it, this is what's going on now. Like, it was pretty bogus how he ran his tour and how he conducted the history of whatever the haunting is. Don't do ghost city tours. Like, absolutely fucking don't. We did go on another tour. I'll cover in the edited video. That was a good tour. I do have quite the haul. The other thing that I want to talk about real quick is where to stay. Okay, that's why we're doing a live video rather than doing an edited video, because this is like kind of like my open thoughts. So we decided to stay in Peabody, because when I looked, I thought, well, there's a lot of walking that we had to do. And when I'm hauling my go bag, my back has a tendency of getting a little sore. And I wanted the option of having a hot tub. I like a hot tub. I like to soak. Okay? The first problem is that the hot tub and the pool were down for repairs. And that is why we chose to stay out in Peabody rather than staying in Salem. The hotel would have been about $40 to $60 cheaper than a lot of the hotels in town. The other reason I didn't want to stay at the hotels in town is because I really didn't want to come home with anybody. And I wanted to actually, I don't know, sleep, you know. These 200- and 300-year-old hotels are not necessarily real friendly when it comes to, well, they have an elevator, you know, but the hallways have a tendency of being fairly tight, and well, the OSHA standards were different, so the bathrooms are a little smaller, and so if you want to, you know, man spread and stretch out, you're not necessarily getting that. So when you're talking about like the Hawthorne and some other hotels, I say the Hawthorne because we use that as a landing point on another part of town a lot, and the Hawthorne is really rather active when it comes to spookies and ghosts. It was like going into a coliseum of people in my head. And it was just like, shut up! I'm trying to think. So we were paying anywhere from $35 to $40 to go back and forth with an Uber in Salem because, bitches, if you're from the Midwest, do not try driving in Boston. No, people, just leave your cars at home. Leave your cars at home. Boston's got its own car language. Boston's got its own bullshit. No. And Salem's like kind of like that, where it's like driving in a suburb. It's just like driving in Grafton, where it's a suburb of Milwaukee. You know, we in the Midwest have our own language of driving with cars, and it does not involve all the honking that goes on. But if you want to get out in traffic, you literally have to get out in traffic, and that's how you get into a turn, is you have to get out where like you're sideways in traffic, preventing this car from going forward. And I couldn't get my head around that. Anyway, hotels. We had chose a cheaper hotel that was outside of town because of the hot tub in the pool. And when it didn't have the hot tub and pool, we weren't paying as much per night as we would have for a hotel in town. So that needs to be a factor when you're talking about your vacation in Salem. So there's the hotel in town versus the cost of an Uber, because yeah, Peabody is not that far away, but you have to take the freeway to get there. But it is, depending on when you go, $11. I think one of them was $11.58 to get into town. And your peak period, you would think, like when I went to San Diego, peak period was over rush hour. Now, peak period in Salem is bar hour, so it's like 10 o'clock and beyond because all the tours are over. That's another good point. So when you're going to Salem and you're planning out your day, I think Red's and the other shop that I wouldn't recommend, they're both open about 6, 7 o'clock in the morning until like 2, 3 in the afternoon. So you can go there, have breakfast. The shops open around 9, 10 o'clock. Most of the history walking tours start around 10, 30, 11 o'clock. And there's like, I don't know, 10 or 15 of those. They're usually witch-oriented, so if you're just looking for history, no, we don't have that anymore. The shops will be open anywhere between 5 and 7 o'clock. There's a couple of places that will stay open until 9. That's usually on the weekends. Yes, there will be places that will be open on the weekends only versus just the weekdays because there's not enough traffic. And then after 6, 7 o'clock is when the ghost tours go on, or the haunted history tours. And a lot of it goes over things people have seen, things people have experienced, yada yada. And those tours will go on until about 9, 10 o'clock at night. And then you got places like Rockefeller's. There's a couple of places in town that are bars that will be open until 11, 12 o'clock. So yeah, your peak period when everybody's fucking done in Salem is about 9:30, 10 o'clock when the ghost tours are over, all the shops are closed, and there's not that many places to eat anymore because nobody's serving after 9 o'clock, and then everybody wants to go back to their hotel. So your peak period for traveling with an Uber is actually after 9 o'clock. So keep that in mind when you decide how much you're paying, because that premium rate is going to take your Uber to get back to like PBD and almost double it. Okay, so it's good to know that. It's good to know that, people. I don't think there's anything else really other than like a haul and like the video that I want to like actually edit that's going to go over everything. Other than I liked Red's. That biscuits and gravy has gravy in it. It was good, but it needs gravy. It was really dry. I'm gonna watch the birds and see if the birds have taken out the chipmunk yet. Later.